from two different types of cypress tree. One of those cypress trees was quite common. The other one was very rare. The next thing they found was some hairs from a dog. And they did a lot of analysis of those dog hairs and worked out that it was probably from a Pekingese dog. And the final thing that they found was human hair, which they determined was originally blonde but had been dyed a henna colour. So after something like 3 months, the police had a fair idea about lots of things concerning this kidnapper. They knew he was a foreigner with an accent. They knew that Freda could identify him. They knew that he was a man who had used a 1955 Ford Custom Line, iridescent blue in colour, to commit the kidnapping. They knew that this man could possibly be identified by Mr. Denmead, the man who'd seen the car on the corner. They thought that the other items that had been found on Graham's body, on the picnic blanket and on his clothing and on the scarf, were probably items that had been picked up when Graham had been kept in a confined space. Now, it was at this stage that a particular police officer became of great importance, and his name was Sergeant Mick Coleman. Sergeant Mick Coleman decided Graham Thorne has been kept prisoner in a house that has foundations made of pink and white mortar. In or near this house are these two types of cypress tree. Somewhere in or near this family, there's a Pekingese dog and a woman with blonde hair who has dyed it a henna colour. Now, all of the other police thought no kidnapper would leave the body of his victim, of his deceased victim, near to his home. So they thought, we're not looking anywhere near Seaforth where the body was found. We're looking, goodness only knows where else in Sydney. But Sergeant Mick Coleman decided, no, this kidnapper is a very strange man. He's shown aspects of laziness. I mean, going to the home of his victim 3 weeks before the kidnapping to find out why their phone didn't connect shows a certain brazenness. So what he decided, and he was ridiculed by his fellow police officers for this, what he decided is, I think that Graham was kept in a home near to where his body was found. So he and his offsiders, Detective Shield, literally walked street after street after street from where the body was found, working out from that street in Seaforth to try and find a home that had pink and white mortar in the foundations and where there were these two types of cypress tree. And they did not have success. And he was continually mocked by his fellow police officers about wasting police time. Then, one day, Sergeant Coleman goes to the home of the man who found the body in Seaforth to get a statement signed by his wife about what she'd been told by the kids. And he's standing at the front gate talking to this woman, and the postman comes by. Sorry, I should go back a step from that. In desperation, because Sergeant Coleman and his offsider had not been able to find a home that fitted all those characteristics, Sergeant Coleman arranged for his offsider, Detective Shield, to go to the local mail exchange at Balgowlah and speak to all the local postmen. And Detective Shield said to these postmen, look, we're looking for a house with pink and white mortar and these two types of cypress tree. And he showed them photographs of the two cypress trees. And he asked all the local postmen, when they're delivering their mail, look out for a house with these qualities. A couple of weeks later, Sergeant Coleman is standing at the front gate of the mother whose child had originally found the body, talking to her about getting her to sign a statement, when the postman arrives. And the postman realises who Sergeant Coleman is and says to him, oh, did you hear that one of the other postmen has found a house that fits the description that your offsider gave to us? And Sergeant Coleman says, no, nobody's told me. So it turned out that the message had never got through, that one of the postmen had found a house in Clontarf, in Moore Street, where there was pink and white mortar in the foundations, and he recognised the two types of cypress tree. So Sergeant Coleman goes to this house in Moore Street, Clontarf. He stands out on the street. He looks at this house, and the hair on the back of his neck goes up because he realises, I don't need to know anymore. I know this is the house where Graham Thorne was kept prisoner. He then makes inquiries. He finds out that the person now living in that house has only been there since a couple of days after the kidnapping, because the previous family, Stephen and Magda Bradley, moved out on the day of the kidnapping. He finds out Stephen Bradley has a 1955 iridescent blue Ford Custom Line. They had a Pekingese dog. And Magda has blonde hair, which is dyed henna. So Sergeant Coleman realises, we've got our man. In the meantime, Stephen and Magda Bradley and their two of their three children, had left Australia on a P&O liner, the Himalaya, bound ostensibly for England. And at the time that the police realised who the kidnapper was, the Himalaya was in the middle of the Indian Ocean, bound for Colombo in what was then known as Ceylon, what's now known as Sri Lanka. The ship was going to have a number of stops after Colombo, and what the police feared was that Stephen Bradley, coming from Hungary, which was at that stage in the Soviet sphere of influence behind what was known as the Iron Curtain, they thought Stephen Bradley might get off the ship before it reaches England and end up in Hungary, where he'd probably be completely not amenable to justice. They wouldn't be able to extradite him. So the police immediately, with the cooperation of the Attorney General's Department in New South Wales, got together all of the papers for an extradition and had an arrest warrant issued for Stephen Bradley when the Himalaya arrived in Colombo. So Stephen Bradley was arrested, taken off the ship and placed in custody in Colombo. His wife and their two children who were on the ship continued on the ship and ended up in London. There was a lengthy period of time during which extradition proceedings took place in Colombo, and eventually an order was made for Stephen Bradley to be returned to Sydney.